So this is the ISO 27001 clinic. It's a tactical Q&A session. I will do my best on the call to help you. Anything that I say that you act upon that you then go on and is wrong is on you, not on me, right? Because I'm not directly consulting with you. I am now recording these sessions and going to be making any questions that you ask me that people normally ask me available on my YouTube channel. If that worries you, you can drop me a mail afterwards and I'll make sure that you're not included in it, and or you can turn your screen off, your camera off. But hopefully you're okay with it. You're not going to ask me anything deeply technical or personal. But I think if you follow my YouTube channel, if you don't, it's at Stuart Barker, and everything that you need is on there as a rule. But it may be today you throw some questions that help somebody else. So hopefully that's okay. So we'll do it as a round robin. I'm going to start with Ollie because you're new to the session. How can I help you today?
So this is the first time we've dropped into the Q&A session. So we subscribed to the kit a couple of weeks ago. So we're just formulating our kind of action plan following your detailed guides and checklist.
Yes.
So we've created a number of policies. We're just trying to get them checked off by the technical teams, and then get them through our approvals process within the business. So we're at very early stages.
Yes.
So really here just to kind of keen just to listen to where everyone else is at and just kind of absorb the information. And hopefully on the next Q&A session we'll have more questions to ask.
No worries. Good to have you with us. I had just by way of an anecdote, right? I had an electrical contractor get in touch with me on LinkedIn, and he said, I'm working for a major airport and I'm installing a door. And the airport have asked me whether or not my door is 27001 or not. And I said, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I don't understand why. So if it's any of you and some contractor comes back to you and goes, why are you asking if my door is 27001? It's my fault, because I said go back and clarify what it is that they're actually asking of you. So James, first time I think with me. So how can I help you today?
Yeah, hi. So I'm a small consultancy. But most of my clients are large corporates, lots in the financial sector. I'm so tired of filling out compliance forms and things, so I just want to be able to kind of get to certification. I've done a fair amount of work at like reading through the standard and trying to kind of make my own way through it, and I sort of have a bit of a sense of it, but I think because I'm small, I'm continuously adapting. I just reached a point where I was like, can somebody help me get through this quicker? And so I downloaded the kit just the other day. I'm kind of going through and mapping my stuff to it and just kind of working out where it is. I'm still a little bit in the kind of working it all out kind of space.
Yeah.
But it looks really kind of neat and like well organized, and I'm kind of just kind of keep working my way through it. And yeah, like Ollie, I might kind of sit back quietly and kind of let things progress, and then kind of check in as it connects the dots for me.
Yeah, no problem. In terms of the approach to it, I was the head of data governance and information security for GE Money for over a decade in Santander, and I work both sides of the house, right? So I help clients get audited by large financial. I've implemented into large financial organizations, so I know the game that we're playing. The toolkit that you've got is structured in a way to be efficient, and it will meet the requirements of the suppliers. Whether you're implementing into them or whether or not they're asking you questions, the artifacts are common. Do you have this risk register?
Yeah.
This policy?
No, that's great. That's great. So, my main clients is everything that they, like their whole thing is mapped to the annex controls.
Yeah.
And so as long as I can create a mapping between them, I can kind of answer their questions really easily. And if I've got good documentation, they are very happy with where I am. But it's a big corporation. Like the person who's asking me the questions doesn't necessarily the one who's like assessing it. And so I just want to make it all as simple and smooth as possible.
Definitely. The folder 8, the internal audit document, the pre-mapped version will map what I've got to the standard and the Annex A controls. And then you can add in additional detail for your client. So I can only go so far on Annex A. I say, you've got this policy or whatever, but the actual process you can add in. But again, that should just fast track. I'm just here to save you time. I mean, you guys do this for a living. Even just creating a risk register, it takes a couple of hours. It's just hours and hours and hours. So fast track through that. So that's great. So see you on future ones. But yeah, hang around. Ren,
Good stuff.
how can I help you today?
I've had a busy week. So I'm going through the Lead Implementer course this week.
Perfect.
So I've had information overload, and like you were saying, what they're going to teach you is going to be a little bit different to how we actually do things. And I think I'm just a little bit bummed with the information that I'm getting. And they've given us this exam, and they've given us a test copy of this exam, and I've been going through it, and I'm just like, I just, when the questions are so tricky and you're like, oh, I don't understand, like
right.
they've really confused me now. So I just wanted to ask, a few of the questions that they've asked here, and what your thoughts are on those, because I just feel like they're a little bit different to what I'm used to.
Go for it, of course. Put me on the spot, right? See if I can pass their test. do it. Let's do it. Let's go for it.
It's just trying to get an understanding of whether my thought process is aligned with yours.
Okay.
So one of the questions that they've asked is, and this is multiple choice, right? So it says the risk assessment process must, and it says A, be suited to the ISMS, B, include criteria for accepting risk, C, ensure that risk assessment produce comparable and reproducible results, and D, all of the above. I think that was fairly easy.
D, all of the above.
I know. That one's easy.
Yeah. Normally when you get an all of the above question, it's normally D, right? It normally is. So that's easy. Okay.
Yeah. So that one's easy. Okay, I'll try and give you a different one. This is the internal audit one, which kind of confused me a little. So according to the ISMS, according to ISO 27001, internal ISMS audits must be A, conducted once per year, B, conducting according to the plan, C, conducted immediately prior to formal certification, or D, none of the above.
So internal audits prior to the certification, or A, B, and C, right? I mean, an internal audit should be conducted at least once a year. So that's the bare minimum that you're going to get away with, right? So when I do my internal audit plan, I give you a video and a guide on how to do planning, and in the template I give you a waterfall audit plan. And what I say is, if I was an auditor looking at this, I would think you were smoke and mirroring it. So move things around, right? What we're supposed to do is we're supposed to do internal audit based on risk. So what is the level of risk that a particular control poses to us, and the higher the risk, the more we may audit it. We're also going to do an internal audit after we have implemented a change, right? So if I find a non-conformity, I implement the non-conformity mitigation, and then a period of time after that, I'm going to do an internal audit to make sure what I did absolutely checks and meets the requirement of the standard. It can be the case that you can do some clients try and do internal audit once every 3-year cycle. And normally what an external auditor will do is will raise it either for an observation. What they should do is call a major non-conformity on it, but they will class it as an observation. And they will push you down the route of auditing everything at least once annually. That's the entire ISMS, and that's all of the Annex A controls. So yes, you do it at least annually, but you do it based on risk, and in reality you should do it more. Yes, you do it after a change or a significant change and you've implemented something. And yes, you have to do an internal audit before you go for your external certification audit. So when you do your stage 1 audit, the first question they're going to ask is, have you completed your internal audit program, and have you shared it with the management review team, and what are the actions off at the back of that? And ideally you've done a clean internal audit because you've done a solid implementation. So I would say those 3.
You can only choose one.
Yeah.
So
that's
which one?
I mean,
which one would you choose?
Well, it depends on what they're training and what the auditor has told you, right? This is the difference. This is the difference between how you. I'll come to you in a sec, Ollie. This is a difference between how you actually operate it and then real world what you will see by the external auditor. What I would probably say is the once fully before you go for external certification audit. The reason I would say that one is it by default means that you've done it at least once annually, right? That's how I would potentially phrase it. Let's just see what Ollie's saying. Yeah, hand up, Ollie.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Red. So, are you doing the certification with PCB?
What's that?
So so I've done the lead implementer exam as well, and
Yeah.
it was for a company called PCB. So we done the course with them, and the exam was actually through them as well. And I think they're the accreditation body for that lead implementer exam. So when I done the course, because those questions are tricky, and there's open to interpretation. But when you do the course, it lists all of the questions you get asked are actually listed in the course material that they provide you. So it may be worth seeing, rather from my experience, if you're just going into the exam, doing the course, because it'll teach you, they kind of teach you how to pass the exam, right? They want you to pass the exam.
Yeah.
But actually having done the exam and got the certification, I'm like I haven't got the full certification because I haven't worked on ISMS for the allocated hours yet and got enough experience. I would say that Stuart's content is a million times better than the stuff that I got taught. Stuart tells you how to do it, and that's why we were keen to do it. And actually, I've found that the Lead Implementer course didn't provide much value apart from maybe having that thing on your CV, so you can pass the HR checks.
Yeah.
But so that's why we're with Stuart.
Brilliant.
Yeah. No, I totally get. I've got the course material as well, so they've given us the course workbook, which is like 300 pages long, and that's what we're going through. And I think with this particular question, see, I was leaning more towards conducting according to the plan, because in the course workbook, they only say at planned intervals. It never mentions once per year. So, and I know with Stuart, with your work, it says, at least once per year.
Fine.
But in this course workbook, it's like planned at.
Then go with a plan, right?
A planned.
Yeah, go with the plan. I mean, yes, we write a plan and we follow a plan, right? But yeah, okay, it is that basic.
Yeah.
Yeah, then fine, go with that.
Okay.
Yeah, check the materials.
Okay.
Ian's got some insight. Ian, you got your hand up?
Yes. Just a question regarding the internal audits. I know you have to do it once a year.
Yes.
And if you have a very large ISMS and there are a lot of Annex A controls, because obviously Annex A controls do not apply to every company or to every business. So you may have Annex A controls which do not apply to you. But if you have a particularly large one, do you have to audit everything every year, or you can split it up and say, look, this year I'm going to audit Annex A1 to 5, and then the next year you audit the rest, or you on a sort of a rotation basis, so to speak.
So this is your management system, so you can do whatever it is that you want to do, as long as you can justify what it is you're doing and why you're doing it as you are. What I would say for best practice is, and just to stop any question with the auditor, is I would want to do everything at least annually. Now, I hear what you're saying, right? The size of your organization may prevent that, or your lack of resources and trained resources, internal audit may prevent that, but that should be your starting point. What I would say for me is that the management system itself, I would do every year, irrespective of size of business, because that doesn't change. Right? Policies, were they reviewed? Do you have management review meetings, continual improvement? Have you done your risk review? Have you done your risk assessment? That isn't dictated by the size of the organization. That's just standard ISMS. So my ISMS, I would do every year. In terms of the Annex A, the technicality will be within the 3-year cycle, you should have audited everything. What you ideally want to do, though, is you want to look at your certification auditor's audit plan, because they will give you 12 months in advance the subset of controls that they are going to look at. So it makes sense that you've internal audited the controls in that cycle that they're going to look at the end of the cycle, right? It's pointless you going off and doing all of these ones over here, but they're coming in and doing HR. So I would have a look at that. What I would also say is that the process of internal audit is a qualification and experience within its own right. And there are other things, for example, CISA, C-I-S-A, which is a great course to go through. I went through it, got certified in it. It isn't something that I personally would maintain from a knowledge, but to get the grounding of knowledge about doing internal audit, that is a great course to do. And what that will look at is things like sampling. So if I've got 1,000 servers and I'm doing an internal audit of malware or patching, am I going to look at 1,000 servers? No, I'm not. And your external auditor won't either. So how do I apply sampling? What is the criteria for picking my sample size? What is an appropriate sample size, etc.? Telling you things you probably already know, Ian. You've probably done it. But it can be possible.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, so it can be possible to do the entirety of Annex A based on sampling and then just change your sampling through the 3-year cycle.
Okay, understood.
Hopefully that helped. Ren, do you have one more? It looks like it's going to be bounced between you and Ian, so if you have one more for me.
Sure, yeah, I can go with that. This is another question. So it says, in order to claim conformity to ISO, what must an organization do? A, implement best practice according to ISO. B, implement controls selected from Annex A on the basis of risk assessment. C, comply with the requirements of clauses 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, and implement a reasonable selection of the controls listed in Annex A. Or D, comply with the requirements of clauses 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and implement security controls from Annex A or elsewhere as a result of risk assessment.
That one.
I'm leaning more towards D.
Yeah, that one.
That's what I put down. D.
So you only ever choose controls based on risk, right? And again, it depends when it comes to the auditor. We play the auditor, not the standard. Every auditor is different, right? And they will try and argue with you why controls should be in scope and out. But the only thing that drives control selection is risk. If I have a risk and a control mitigates it, that is the only reason that I'm going to have it. And I may choose controls from outside of the Annex A framework, and I may already have controls. There may be Cyber Essential, PCI, there may be SOC 2, there may be other controls that I have that mitigate the risk that 27001 hasn't considered. So yeah, short answer D from me.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I was leaning towards. I had to read that a few times to kind of understand what they were saying. Like, hang on.
It's because it's
what are you
wordy.
talking about?
They're wordy, right? I mean, this is what Ollie's saying to you, right? I mean, no issue with it. I think in terms of like not going through your entire exam for you, what I would say is go back to your course material, understand, as I would in an audit, I play the auditor, not the standard. What is the auditor? What's their background? What's their approach? What do other people say about them? What feedback can I get? What kind of answers do they like to hear? Apply that to your training. Ask people like Ollie, when you've been through the course, what kind of things do they like? What do they like to ask? What kind of things do they want, right? I've done like CISSP and stuff like that back in the day. And even when token networks weren't a thing, we had questions on it and everybody's arguing with it. And we go, look, you want to pass the test, you answer the question, right? I mean, so you need to work out the mechanics of what it is that they're looking for and then give them that. And if it's in the workbook, great. And if it's not, ask your colleagues, ask wider, go onto community forums and try and find out. A challenge that you're going to have is a lot of the standards are questioned in English, but the question posers isn't their first language or it isn't their natural language. So you struggle sometimes with the interpretation, the grammar, which can be confusing. So you've got to work it out. And questions will come up time and time again, right? They just change the wording slightly. So you'll become familiar with it.
Yeah. Can I ask another one?
Go on,
this one, I'm leaning, sorry, this will be the last one. I'm leaning between two responses here.
Go for it.
It says, with regards to the implementation of security controls from Annex A, which of the following is true? All controls selected must be included in the SOA with rationale for selection. All controls must be implemented. Every control must have an identified owner, or controls not selected are not included in the SOA. I'm leaning between A and C.
Right. Again, I'm trying to figure out what they want to hear, right? So the statement of applicability is a list of controls that you have identified as being relevant to you. It doesn't have to be a specific document in its own right, but just by the very nature of listing them, for example, your risk register. The way that I do it is I have that statement of applicability and I list out the controls that are relevant. So they need to be in the SOA. They don't need to be, but
they do.
But they probably say that they do. Do they need to be fully implemented? Again, for certification audit, I would say yes, right? Because I wouldn't want to go for a certification audit where they weren't. You would have a challenge at certification audit if you didn't in the real world. So let me give you an example, right? If you go forward and you say business continuity testing, I'm going for my certification audit. I need to do business continuity. It's a control. It mitigates a risk for availability. I've got my documentation and I haven't done a DR test. Stage 1, you'd probably get away with it. At stage 2, dependent on the auditor, and you say I haven't done a DR test, but it's planned for November, it's probably going to be raised as a non-conformity, a minor or a major. Now, it might not always be the case. You might get away with it. But what I'm saying is, for me, when I give you the answers and when I give you the toolkit, I try and cover every base, every pedantic auditor I've ever come across, and I try and give you the smoothest journey through. So I'm saying you might get away with it by not implementing a control, by having documentation, by having it on your risk register. You might, but it will be dependent on the auditor on the day. That doesn't help you with your test questions, because I don't know what it is that they're wanting.
Yeah, because with that one as well, so in our organization, we have application development. We don't do app development at all. So those controls are excluded. So they're in the SOA, but because we don't do it, they're excluded.
Correct.
And that's what I understood from that one. All controls must be implemented. We can't implement something if it doesn't apply to us.
Oh, I would agree with that. If that's the wording of it. Yeah, you're not implementing it. You are correct. You're not implementing every control by no means. You're only implementing a control because it mitigates a risk, and your SOA, you could have a statement that says controls not in their SOA are out of scope because they don't mitigate any risks, right? But again, for belts and braces, I list them and I put that next to it. So that you are correct. Yeah. I absolutely agree on that one.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll just have a look back at the course book that they've sent to understand which one are they probably thinking is true, what they want us to think is true.
James might have some input.
He's mute. You're mute.
You're muted.
Whoops, sorry. Classic. Sorry, not your question, so I'm happy to wait until...
Oh, okay.
No, that's fine. Okay. I'm done. Thank you.
No, cool. I wonder if you... So my biggest kind of issue with this is I'm a very small organization. I'm just dealing with larger organizations, so their kind of requirements are higher than... And I wonder if you could maybe, I don't know, just... Like, I'm always trying to kind of find fit for purpose. And maybe you could, I don't know, talk for a minute about like your experience working with smaller organizations, and are there any kind of mindsets to kind of help kind of think it through? To date, I've been maybe like over-engineering things. My conversation with the security teams at my clients is usually like, oh my God, what are you doing? It's too much. Can you kind of dial it back a little bit for your own sanity?
Yeah.
But obviously, if you're trying to kind of work through the system, like a really good example would be like list out the person in all of these roles. Like I'm a person in all of those roles. So like, how can I make it a little bit more fit for purpose for that scope? Are there things that other people are doing? Like, I don't know what your experience is with smaller businesses.
Definitely. So you've got two things in play. You've got the management system standard, and then you've got the Annex A controls. The management system standard approach that I give you meets one-man band all the way through to multinational organization. When you get the example you give is roles and responsibilities, there are specific roles that you've got, but can one person hold more than one role? Yes, they can. Even if it's the case that there are one or two of you in an organization, the challenges that you have to overcome are segregation of duty, right? So what I've got to look at is conflicts of interest. But if it is the case that you are so small and you accept the risk, then outscope the control and say that. So what you can say is, we are a husband and wife team, we are a brother family team, background checks, we're not doing it, we accept the risk of not doing it, these are the reasons why. All of the roles are allocated to me because I'm a one-man band. I accept the risk of, as long as you understand the risk and you document it, then that's going to be fine. The reason that I give you the templates that I do for some of the basics is because they will ask you, did you consider? And as long as you can answer the question that I considered it, but it's just me, then it will make your audit go smoother than rather than having to drag it out of you through question and answer. In terms of appropriateness of control, my whole point around all of my videos and my YouTubes is that 27002 Annex A is guidance. It is not a tick list of things that you need to do. So this is your management system, these are your risks, and these are controls to mitigate your risks. Firstly, choose the control to mitigate the risk. Does it mitigate it, yes or no? If it does, then to what level am I going to implement it? Now, what will tend to happen is, because governance, risk and compliance sits above information security, 27001 isn't an information security standard, it's a risk management standard. So it's about how we manage how we manage. Normally what happens is process people or technical people come to it and work ground up. So they go, oh, I know about pen testing, I know about hacking. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put all of this technical stuff in. But what they haven't done is assess what the risk is and how they're mitigating the risk. What they haven't done is gone through that rationale for the budget and everything that goes with it. They do the thing that they're comfortable with, right? They avoid like low-hanging fruit like HR, contracts, training and awareness, because it's not natural to them. So what I do as a consultant, exactly that, is I would say, if you are a small organization, tell me what you've got right now and let's reuse it. Right? If there are things that are built into Microsoft that meet some of the technical controls, let's use them, right? Let's implement them. If there are processes you've got, you know, I give you the example on 5.7 for threat intelligence. You don't need a SOC team, a team of people analyzing stuff. You can satisfy that with a very basic document, looking at your own internal data, your own internal risks, your own internal incident reports. You can sign up to vendor newsletters, you can sign up to government websites, and you can tick the box, right? I mean, it's, why are you going? Why is somebody selling you 20 grand's worth of logging and monitoring and this, that, and the other when you're just a small team, right? So that's where the art of the consultant or you or the implementer comes in, is helping the client to navigate. What I would say out of all of that, when it comes to 27001, we're only really doing it because our client is asking for it. And the level of control that we're implementing at its basis level is because our client is asking us to do it, right? Your bosses, the people with the shareholders, don't want information security. They don't want the burden and they don't want the cost. They want to generate revenue. If the client says to you, you will have a password system and your password system is 25 characters long and it looks like this and it changes every 24 hours and there's a commercial contract, you will do it irrespective of what the 27001 standard says, right? So we're always going back to client need. We can do our guidance and do our tick the box thing, but if it's not appropriate for our client, at some point our client will come to us and say, you have to do it this way or we're not going to give you any money.
Yeah, that feels very, very familiar.
Ollie, you have your hand up. Oh, you're on mute, dude. When was pandemic?
Schoolboy era.
Exactly that.
So we're in the process at the moment of writing some of policies. While scope for the ISMS is looking to be surrounding customer data, and more specifically our website, so where people can book car park and stuff like that. Most of our customer data is held in there. We obviously have a lot of other systems around the airport.
Yeah.
So when we're writing policies, is it better for us to write a policy for all of our systems, to encompass all of our systems, so that what good looks like, or is it better for us to write policies for the in-scope systems for the ISMS, so we can have I don't know how to, so we can kind of differentiate the policy amongst the different systems as such, because I think we may run into a few issues where the technical controls that we may like to have may not be applicable for legacy systems, OT, and so on and so forth. So
Fine.
I was just trying to see if we can decomplex our policy writing and just hone it into what we're having in scope for the ISMS.
Exactly that. So you want to make your life as simple and easy as possible, right? So now we're moving up a little bit into the governance, risk and compliance, the role of a CISO or leadership team. No issue, right? So let's remove the minutiae of 27001. If I have a policy set, policies are statements of what I do. They're not statements of how I do it. So policies are statements of, we have anti-malware software. Anti-malware software does X, Y, and Z. HR policies, we do background checks on employees. It doesn't say how you do it. It says what you do, but not how. So then what we do is we say, right, we've got this policy over here that says we do background checks. We've got these people in America. How do we do it there? Here's a process for America. Here's a process for the Isle of Wight. Here's the process for France, whatever it may be, right? So processes rely on policies, but we do not put process steps in policies for that very reason. So if I do a patching policy, we patch our systems within vendor recommended timelines. Patches to systems are tested. before release. In the event that there is an incident, patches are rolled back. That's our policy, right? How do I do it for Linux? How do I do it for Microsoft? How do I do it for Apple OS? The process steps are going to be different. So I would apply it at that level. What we also have is, because 27001 is a risk-based management system, firstly, my policies can apply to the whole organization. The rigor of how I deal with that is going to be proportionate, right? I am going to do full rigor when it comes to in-scope. I might have them apply to the whole organization, but I'm not going to bust anybody's chops over it. I'm just going to say, guys, in that department, there's this patching policy. At some point, you're going to come in scope, work towards it. To this team over here, you guys are in scope, so you better be meeting it and you better be delivering on it. So I would have policies that apply to the whole organization. The level of rigor will be dependent on where in the organization it is. Because 27001 is a risk-based management system, we manage by exception. We have this, right? And as long as you have caught and managed the exception before the auditor does, then you will pass the test, right? So if I say my windows are, they're patched, they're vendor supported, they're all up to date, but I'm using this Windows 98 machine for car park ticketing over here because it never got upgraded, right? And it's sat in this room over here. What am I going to do? We're going to fail. No, we're not. What we're going to do is we're going to put it on the risk register and we're going to manage it via risk. So we're going to accept the risk of having a Windows 98 machine that's still sat there chugging away in a hot room. And we're going to write down what are our compensating controls. What are the controls that we have in that compensate against the risk? So it could be on an isolated network. It could be in a room on its own. It could be that we physically manually check it on a daily basis. It could be that we've got a support contract with this one-man band who loves Windows 98 and still does this stuff, right? So what we're looking at is management by exception. Policies at a high level applying to everything, the rigor proportionate to which part of your organization where you are, and we manage by exception. I use the same on HR background checks. If I'm going to go, or training, if I'm going to go into an external certification audit and I've got 300 people and 10 of them haven't done training, and I'm going to get called out on it as a non-conformity, right? I'm going to get called out because 10 people out of 300 haven't done training. I catch it and I put it on my risk register. What is the reason? These people are on maternity leave. They were on holiday. They're in a different country. They're in a different time zone, right? What is my compensating control? I trained them within the last 12 months. I sent them an e-newsletter. They did a digital online course, right? So as long as I've got that narrative, when it comes to the external auditor, they can't fail me. They can fail you if they say, show me your training records for 300 people, and then go, why are these 10 people not done it? And then you're like, oh, I don't know. They go, right, fail.
I think that's really good managing by exception, because we will have a lot of exceptions within our organisation,
Of course.
especially around background checks and some of the regulations we have to stick to. So we're actually going for a process at the moment for one of our regulatory pieces where we will have to eventually manage by exception, and I suppose as long as we've got like a flow chart and we can demonstrate that we've got some form of process and we raise risks against it, then I suppose that the auditor will be like, well, okay, you said you've got 300 people, you've only got 290, but actually the 10 you're managing the risk via these controls, you've got process in place.
Yeah.
So that's really good. Thank you.
The clue is in the name, right? ISO 27001, Information Security Management System. Are you managing? If you can evidence, right, there is a technical argument that you can't fail on any Annex A control, right? Because they're not auditing you against that, they're auditing you against the management system. A failure of an Annex A control should be tied back to a failure in the management system, and that's what you're failing on, right? The control itself is not the thing that they're auditing whether or not you're managing risk. So as long as you're managing and you've got a good narrative around anything and you're managing that risk, for you it just becomes proportionally more difficult, because the more exceptions I've got, the more management I've got to do. So in time, it's just easier to fix things than it is to manage via exception. Or your exception becomes the norm and you flip it, right? More people are doing this than they are this, therefore that is my norm, clearly, and therefore I'll flip it.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Does anybody else have anything else for me today? No? Perfect. Well, thank you for that. You put me on the spot. I feel like I've done my implementer exams from years ago. If there's anything else you need, book on. The Q&A sessions are booked. And until the next one, have a good day. You may see yourself on YouTube.
Cool. Thanks very much.
All right, guys. Cheers. Bye.
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 Sure, thanks for sorting us out. I know it's a bit short notice this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry for the mix-up of the email address.
That's all right. I think we've got like bigger problems if people don't know what their own email is, right? I get that a lot.
Yeah.
The only support call I ever get is, I tried to log into your toolkit and it's locked me out. And I'm like, yeah, because you used the wrong email address, right? I mean, I don't know what your email address is. I can't work it out.